Yeah, sorry, folks. I've just started recording. So just wanted to welcome you all to this next installment of TGIM. Very pleased to announce this young lady from up in New South Wales. The first time I met her was at the recent Spectacular, and I saw her and I thought, yeah, this lady knows how to work out. Um, and in addition to that, I actually saw her pulling a sled with, who was it that you were pulling the other day in the gym? Just give me a tick. Sorry, just got to unmute you, Jen. Hang on. Go for
Yeah, it was just my massage therapist.
it.
It was
So,
just my massage therapist. He gave me a challenge. So
yeah, very impressed. Very impressed. So
fun.
this lady really knows what she's doing from an exercise perspective, and I think we can all say that we're very excited to hear about her journey and what she's got going on at the moment, and also what she's got planned, but also where she's come from. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Jenny, and this is all yours. I'll take care of the slides for you. Go for it, young lady.
Thank you. Thanks heaps, Andrew.
Pleasure.
Hey guys, how are you all? You've already given a thumbs up, so that means we're all alive, which is really good. So as Andrew's introduced, my name's Jen. I live in the Sutherland Shire region at the moment. I did write notes. We'll see how I go with those. um, but I'm gonna start and give you a bit of a journey about me and my life very briefly without boring you too much. But I'm basically one of two kids. So I have an older brother who's 6 years older than me. We grew up in Sydney, and we pretty much lived in the Sydney region, ever since we were born. My parents moved around a lot when we were kids, so our upbringing was pretty tough. We didn't have a lot of money. We had very, very minimal money. My parents had failed businesses, and a lot of hardship that I guess as kids you go on the journey with your parents with as well. So I always grew up in, I guess, a house of always somehow having everything that we needed, but also not having what we desire to give our kids these days, as far as leaving a legacy for them, and leaving something that we can really impart into their life, whether that be financially or emotionally. So but in saying all that, they're amazing parents. I love them very much. They also live here in Sydney. I went to primary school out near, I don't know if anyone knows Sydney that well, but out near Kings Langley, Seven Hills region. My primary school years are pretty tough, to be honest. I was bullied pretty badly, mainly through grade 4 to grade 6. That's all I can remember, really. I don't think anyone remembers before then, or if they do, you're very lucky you have a good memory. But I do remember those years being some very influential years in just how they developed me a little bit, and how they, I guess, challenged me in the school region. I didn't have a lot of friends. I had a lot of people who just ostracized me a little, and to this day I don't really know why. Because I wasn't a nasty person. I was quite the opposite. But I think it was just a mix of the people in the school that I was in, and the culture of the kids that were there as well. But I ended up making some really cool friends, and a couple of them were, believe it or not, Jehovah's Witnesses, which I still laugh about at this day. But God, they were lovely people, and they completely took me under their wing, and they made getting up for school every day that little bit easier. Yeah. So I'm very thankful for those two people, and I don't know if I ever see them again, but I hope I do one day, because I'd really love to thank them just for how they just took me under their wing, and loved me, and just accepted me, and just helped me through that hard journey. They could see what was going on. So it was just really nice to have people drop into your life at certain times, even when you're a kid, So we got through primary school, went to high school. I decided to go, I don't think I decided, I think my parents decided that I was going to go to a girls' school. I don't know why, but I did. Didn't get bullied out there. It was a completely different environment. But let's just say I was never really good at school. Learning is not my thing, unless it's practical learning. But I was never really good in the books. I did struggle quite a bit through school. And I think as well, at that time, we had our parents who were really, reaching out for help. They were going to churches, they were reaching out to Salvation Army, a whole lot of places just to try and help keep a roof over our heads at that time. And that was pretty tough when you're a kid because you miss out on a lot. I don't think my brother and I hardly ever went to a school excursion or a school camp. Just the little things that we take for granted, we didn't have the capacity. Parents, they somehow always made it work, and they somehow always put food on the table, and they somehow always put clothes on our body. We never went without the bare necessities in life, and I really honour them for that because, looking back now as a single mum, I appreciate so much more just how much effort they put in, and what they did and the sacrifices they made for that. But school, school was school, journey through school. I left in year 10. It just wasn't my gig. And I started, I think as a result of everything that happened for my parents, I got this independent streak and decided that, you know what, I can't change life for them, but I can change life for me. So I decided that after much, chatting to them for quite a while, I said, this just isn't me. I'm not learning. The only things I excelled at was sport. I played AFL and touch footy on the school teams, did really well at that. Anything sport related, I was there with bells on. I'd turn up early and put in the commitment and the hard work and the training. But outside of sport, music and art, which are all very creative and physical elements, which are my strengths, it was really hard to push through every day. Did make some amazing friends along the journey, and I'm very grateful for them. And I'll tell you the story about what happened with that throughout my journey. But I left school in year 10, and I decided that I would try my hand at anything. And I thought at the time, oh God, I want to be a hairdresser. For some reason, chicks just want to be hairdressers or do something like that when they're young. Started an apprenticeship and dropped out after 12 months. And the only reason why I dropped out was because it's so bitchy. And I think I just couldn't handle that anymore. And I know not all hair salons are like that, in all due respect to anyone who's in that industry. But the salon I was in was just horrible. It was worse than being in primary school again. And I ended up with some major skin conditions as a result of the chemicals that you had to do or had to use and wash off and all that. So I just kind of was like, you know what, this is not my career. I'm out. So off I went again, ended up landing just a job, believe it or not, in a playland called Lollipops Playland and Cafe. Some of you might know that. They're still around now. And I was one of the first crew to open up the first one in Sydney and Castle Hill. So I actually really enjoyed it. I worked my way up to assistant manager very quickly. I was and am still a very, very hard worker. I really do. I'm probably one of the few people who, if we compare ourselves to, the generation below us of kids that are coming through now, that actually really genuinely care about what I do and giving 100% capacity, in whatever job I do, McDonald's, here, wherever, it doesn't matter. That's just my work ethic. And I think that comes from watching what my parents went through and knowing that I had the ability to change that for myself. So I worked for them for quite a while, quite enjoyed it, and then thought, you know what, let's get real, Jen. What are you going to do for the rest of your life? You can't work in Lollipops. It might be fun, but, what are you going to do with your life? What do you want to do? And so I started, poking and probing and doing a bit of self-assessment around, well, what's my passion? What's my drive? What makes me tick? And I always had a heart for people, and I always had a heart to help people. And I, at the time, decided that I wanted to work with adolescents, youth people. And that was at the time just my passion and my heart. I really had a heart for seeing people grow and develop. And so I went and studied, and I ended up doing just through TAFE, my certificate, my diploma, whatever it was, in community services. And then I went out and got a job and worked as a drug and adolescent worker. So I worked in an all-boys live-in unit. And that was big. That was around the same time I got that job that I met my ex-husband. And we ended up living in the area and got married and all of that. I got married really, really young. and I just started in a very challenging career. And again, I did it for 12 months. Shift work is nasty. For those of you who do shift work, you know exactly what I'm saying. But I learned along the journey that wasn't for me. And again, I was like, far out. How many times do you have to have a go at something and keep, realizing, oh, no, that's not really it. That's not really it. And so I then went and did some more study and was like, all right, well, I'm very creative. I think I want to be in corporate. So I decided to, while I was studying, I stayed in there's a company called Ted Noff's Foundation. I stayed with them, but I just moved positions into the administration and intake officer. So assessing the people to come in, assessing the young boys, setting up, basically looking after the everyday running of the facility, which was all right for me. I didn't mind it. I still got to be in a place where I felt like I was adding value to people, but without the emotional intensity that I would go home with every day. So I kept studying and did my administration certificate and worked my way into the corporate world. Again, did really, really well. Worked into a marketing position, which I really loved. And again, applied myself. I always gave 150% over and above, what was asked of me. And I think that's just my work ethic. That's just how I roll. And I really enjoyed that. I stayed in that industry. I did stay for longer than 12 months. I stayed for, it was about 3 to 4 years. And in that time, obviously, I'd gotten married, we'd purchased a house and things like that. And at the age of 25, I fell pregnant with my first child, which is a boy. His name's Caleb. He's now 8 years old. And around that time, I was starting to get that same feeling I'd had ever since I was in high school, which was just being unsettled and feeling that sense of I'm just not fulfilled. I don't feel like I'm living in a place where I'm actually being true to what I was put on this planet for. And I always had that, always resonated with me from a very young age of a kid through my teenage years and up. I just knew there was something more. And so as a result, I consistently felt unfulfilled. So I might have been great at those roles and great in those jobs and had a genuine passion and applied myself 150, but there was still something missing. So around that time, I was getting restless again and had my son, and that was a really, really tough time in my life. I did 8 weeks solo by myself. So as a brand new mum, literally leaving hospital, my husband at the time had just been made redundant, and he was pretty much told that he was given 8 weeks, and they pretty much bled him black and blue for 8 weeks. So I didn't see him. I think we bumped it 1 hour in the middle of the night. The poor guy worked some ridiculous hours, and the company he worked for, unfortunately, were quite nasty. There was just no respect that we just had a kid, or maybe potentially there's someone at home that might need him. They were just pretty brutal. And it was just, you either work for us or you can walk now and not get your redundancy payout. So it was kind of a bit of a loophole that we were caught in. So I just had to suck it up. But, now in the time, I wouldn't have admitted it, but after the fact, I had pretty bad postnatal depression. And I did not cope at all. Did not cope. If you can call 8 weeks of your life in tears day and night not coping, then it's definitely not coping. But you know what? I every day I'd just wake up and drag myself out of bed and pick myself up and just keep on going, because that's what I had to do. And, my parents helped out here and there, and, people come into your life at different times, and there were people that would pop in, but the emotional baggage and the emotional turmoil that you go through when you have postnatal depression isn't fixable by someone just turning up on your doorstep. It's a deeper level of stuff that you got to work through. And I don't think I worked through that for about 5 years. It just got easier, but it didn't completely resolve to a point where I was actually finally comfortable with the fact that I was a mum. And part of that was, now looking back on that, I had kids young, and sometimes you think you're ready for things in your life, but you're not, and nothing prepares you for them. But when you're in those moments, you have to make a choice to just keep on going. So after we got through those 8 weeks, I was pretty just disheveled. I just wasn't me. I felt horrible. I had a lot of complications physically. I couldn't walk properly for 8 to 10 weeks, so I couldn't even barely get off the lounge. And that was just due to an epidural that went a bit bad. And, I had to get chiropractors to come to my house because I couldn't drive. It was just not a fun time in life to endure. After that, my husband at the time, we got through the 8 weeks. He had, I think it was about 8 weeks off. So we got a good 8 weeks, which was really, really good. It was like the breath of fresh air. And, life went on. He got another job and we kind of kept cruising. I got an opportunity to go back to work, but I was put in a compromising situation and I wanted to go back to work because I actually, I liked the job, even though I still felt that sense of unfulfillment, and I needed it for me. I needed to go back to work. I'm a worker. I'm not a stay-at-home mum, and I knew that, and I found that out very quickly, and I was okay with that, and some people can be stay-at-home mums, and I just completely take my hats off to them because it's something that I've never been able to be comfortable and happy with. But I was basically told, you either come back in a full-time capacity or you have no job. And I was like, far out. I don't need to come back full time. I don't want to come back full time. I have a 6-month-old little bundle here and I don't have to go back financially, but I need to go back for me and my own mind state, and to be pursuing something that's for me. So I had a hard call to make and things fell through, and I just went, you know what? While I might be struggling with being a mum, I'm not prepared to go full time. I'm not prepared to budge on this. So I let the job go, and I went and worked for their competitor. But I didn't enjoy the job as much. I wasn't used to my full capacity, not because they didn't know what I was capable of, but just because the work wasn't there. It was in diagnostics, and I was like, meh, this just didn't rock my boat whatsoever. So I stayed there for a while, and I stayed there for nearly 2 years part-time. The hours were what I needed, so it got me through. But this feeling of unfulfillment just got bigger and bigger and stronger, and I just went, you know what am I doing? What makes me tick? What do I get out of bed for? Like, I know it's people. I know I'm passionate about helping people and seeing them grow, but what's my skill? What's my strength? And, it's exercise, it's fitness, it's health. And I knew all that stuff back in high school, but the one thing that held me back from pursuing that was the fact that I was never good at school and books. So I thought, well, I'm never going to be able to go and get a degree. I can't be a chiropractor. I can't be a physio. I can't even go and do a TAFE course. I just had this thing in my head that I was crap at anything related to studying. And it was a big roadblock for me. And that was just because I didn't do well in school. So I was then at a crossroad in my life, and I thought, well, what do you want to do, Jen? Like, do you want to stay unfulfilled and unhappy, or do you want to actually go and challenge that and see if maybe now, however many years later, you are actually good at the books, and potentially might actually find out you actually can get through it because you're doing something you're passionate about, you're interested in, and you love. So I went back to study. I did my Cert 3, and then that was fine. And the reason why I did my Cert 3 was because at the time I was like, I'm just going to start out as a group fitness instructor and get into my local gym teaching classes. I loved my Les Mills classes and I still do, teach them all, majority of them now. But I thought, all right, we'll start there. And then another curveball hit. And we basically, my husband at the time and I, we didn't see each other. We lived in one particular part of Sydney. He worked on one side, I worked on the other, and we just never saw each other. So an opportunity came up for him to move back out to regional New South Wales, which is where his parents are. And we thought, all right, well, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the opportunity, to get us out and help me to break out and maybe potentially start a fresh start on a brand new career that I want to give a red hot go. And when you start a new career in health and fitness, as a PT, it's it's not impossible, but it is a little bit harder in the Sydney market because there is a lot more competition and you're up against people who've been in the industry for a long time. So the caliber versus your experience or lack of is pretty tough. So we ended up making the jump. We moved out to Leeton near Griffith and ended up living in a little place. If you want to put that first slide up, you'll see that was where we lived for about 3.5 years. And, you know, I think I left Sydney going, oh, this will be pretty cool. Fresh start, opportunity for me to actually get in there and start my career. An opportunity to, I guess, see what happens and trying to bring our family back together a little bit. Is that slide up, Andrew? Oh, wow, not that one.
Just trying to get it up, mate. Just give me a tick.
Just the first slide.
Can we see that?
There it is.
Yeah.
So let me talk you through this. That's my son, Caleb, up the top left with his bottle of aloe, which he loves. My daughter, Ada Grace. And the bottom corner one is actually my brother. So that's my big bro. His name's Paul. And the house in the middle is where we ended up staying. So we're pretty much on a property in the middle of nowhere. We lived with kangaroos and sheep and a crap load of orange trees. And we were about 30 k's out of Griffith. But you know what? It was for a season and for a time. I ended up getting an opportunity with a gym in Griffith, and the managers of that gym really, really took me under their wing. And I'm just super, super, super grateful for those two people. They pretty much gave me the opportunity to come on board and just start as a group fitness instructor. I was pregnant with my second child at the time, and I was like, yes, let's go. I was only doing freestyle because I was, you know, I hadn't done certain Les Mills training, but I needed someone to come and mentor me. I needed someone who was prepared to take me under their wing and really mentor and guide me through this journey that was a complete new start for me. I had the passion. Yeah, sure, you go and study, but nothing prepares you to actually, you know, get the experience. So these two people did exactly that for me, and they really, really, over the course of 3 years, just built me up and gave me experience that I don't think I would have gotten if I'd stayed in Sydney. I had the privilege of working with a physiotherapist straight up. So obviously I had to do my Cert 4, but they sponsored me to do that. So they paid for all that for me, which was amazing. I got that done really quickly while I was in the, you know, final stages and early stages with my daughter. So I got that out of the way, and I went back to work 3 months after no, I didn't. I lie. I went back teaching 5 weeks after her. And I felt amazing. I was very, very fit, not as fit as I am now, but I was very fit with my second child, both still teaching group fitness, but also just, I don't know, I just trained all the way through it, and I had a lot better pregnancy than what I did with my son. Again, still complications, but we won't go into those, but came out all right the other side. And I think a lot of that was definitely to the fact that my fitness levels and my body conditioning was completely at a different level to what it was with Caleb. So when I went back to work at 3 months, I was able to work the hours around me. I did a contract. I worked for them. They paid me. So, pay wasn't great, but if you don't live in Sydney, everything's a lot cheaper. So it wasn't a big deal for me. But I worked with them. They really carried me through. They taught me a lot of stuff about personal training. The physiotherapist taught me a lot of stuff, and I actually ended up being one of his clients. And then I started a personal journey of working through some stuff in my body that I'd had, problems with for years and years and years of my life. So basically he helped me with my scoliosis. I have a full S-curve scoliosis. You would not think it, but I do. And I would pretty much spend every day of my life in some form of pain. So if I was on my feet for more than 3 hours, I'd be like, oh God, I have to sit down, train a client seated. It was a bit tough. But he was able to treat me over 6 to 12 months of grueling treatments. And he got me to a point where I was in absolutely no pain. I got worse, but then I got better. And to this day, I've not had anything like I've experienced through, a lot of my life when it came to my lower back problems. So that was phenomenal. And along the way, I just learnt so much. So really, really important time in my life. And I look back on that now as a real watershed moment. And while I struggled living in the middle of nowhere, I'm a city girl. I like the serenity. I like being near water. I like being near trees. But being stuck in the middle of nowhere for me was really tough. The last year that I was out there again, we got another curveball hit us. And basically my ex-husband's work again pretty much just said to him, we need you back in Sydney now. My son had just started kindy. He was one term in, and I think I had a phone call at least once or twice a week, every week for term one, saying, could you please come to the school office? We need to talk to you. Your son's done this, your son's done that. And I was just like, far out, this is a good kid. What's going on? Like, it was just a really tough term to get him settled and established. And then the curveball came where, he had to go back and move to Sydney and be there full time. So I don't know, after going through that term one with my son, I was like, I just can't move. I just can't keep moving. I grew up moving from house to house with my parents, and we moved all the time because we were never able to, bed down somewhere. Not that that's a big deal, but for me, that I just got to a point where that was enough. I just didn't want to keep moving. But at the same time, I wanted to be back in Sydney. But recognizing everything that my son had gone through, I was just like, I feel like I need to bed him down. I need to settle him, and then we'll move. So I made the choice to stay there by myself with him. And that was a rough season, but it was okay. There were good things and bad things about that. I think the good thing was the next level of independence in me came out, and I'm a highly independent person. But on the flip side of that, it continued to, create a wedge between me and my ex-husband that just continued to draw us further and further apart. And so it was a bit of a payoff. Do you put your kids first, or do you just move for the sake of hoping that, again, following what's been dealt is the right thing to do? But that was our decision. That's what we made. And once I make a decision, I stick to it. So that was a bit of a tough year again. But I also knew that the end was in sight, because at the end of the year, I'd be moving back to Sydney, and I was really excited about that. I just wanted to be back and see my family. And I don't know, it wasn't the place that I knew was where I was meant to be. So towards the end of that year, I moved back in December. And we moved into the Shire this time. Love the Shire. Wish I'd lived here longer. But basically from that point on, things got a little tough. My marriage broke down, and I at the time had come here not knowing what to do for work, but knew that this was a completely different kettle of fish to regional New South Wales and how things roll. Didn't want to work for myself. And the only reason why I didn't want to work for myself is because I'd lived through my parents. And sometimes you say things in life along the lines of, oh God, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to own my own business. I'm never going to do that because such and such had a bad experience. It didn't work. And so we put limitations around ourselves because something didn't work for someone else. And the trauma of that and how that affects you then is what resonates out when you go through those phases of no, I don't want my own business. And that was my headspace. I don't want my own business. So I was looking for people to employ me, and I had a whole lot of job opportunities. I got stuffed over a few times by some companies, which was rough. But I went back to the basics of group fitness instructing. I got my foot in the door at some places, and I found a gym in Alexandria called All Sorts Fitness. You can go to the next slide, Andrew. And I walked in there, and after, being interviewed hundreds of times from Fitness First and a whole lot of other places, I don't know, there was something about this place that I was just like, this feels home in a weird way. And I didn't really know why, because I didn't know anyone. But I had a really good feel about it. So they took me on board straight away, and I had a bit of favour with the manager there. And I started teaching classes, and then obviously we worked through coming on board as a personal trainer. So I came on board initially as a personal trainer, where I gave a percentage of my session cost to them, so I didn't have to pay rent. And we followed that for as long as I needed to build a business to a point where I would then come in and pay rent. So inadvertently, what I'd done is become a contractor without even realizing it, starting a personal training business from scratch. So that was, I kind of was like, oh, I think it happened in a sneaky way for me, but it was something that needed to happen. So I was at a point where I was starting a business, and my marriage was broken down. I was at a bit of a messy point. My grandma, who you see in the bottom, had just passed away, and she was a very, very, very dear woman to me. I'm not going to cry, but so that happened as well, and I obviously got on a plane and went there to be with the family for the funeral, and it was just lots and lots going on. I don't know, sometimes I talk about things coming in waves, and I think that year of my life was a wave that I did not see coming, did not expect it, probably lived in denial of it for quite a while. But again, I had to get to a point where I either stayed at a point of emotional recklessness and just being completely disheveled, or I had to make a choice to step over a line and go, you know what do I need to do personally to start to change me so that I can journey through everything that's going on right now. I spent about 6 months just emotionally ruined. Just, you got to journey through stuff. When things in life happen, you can't hold your head up and go, I'm great. The reality is you're not great, and you got to be real and honest about that. But at the same time, you got to be prepared to psychologically, mentally, and emotionally walk yourself on the journey through that as well, if you want to get to the other side. And I wanted to get to the other side, so I pretty much threw myself into just opening my heart up to actually, and my mind up to start to process everything that had happened in my life, from the day dot that I got married through to, growing up as a kid, through to just everything that had shaped me and brought me and led me to that point in my life. It was a time that I had to really peel onion layer by onion layer by onion layer back, and boy, they make you cry, onions. But as a result of journeying through that, I came out of 6 months and I was ruined. I was okay, but physically, health-wise, I was ruined. Mentally, I was coming to the other side of the hill, so to speak, and I could see there was light. But, I journeyed 6 months of what I call a desert season of my life, where to just get out of bed was a winning feat. But I did it, and I got out of bed and I pulled myself up, and I reminded myself that I had a business that I had to build, and that I had people that needed me to be something in their life that no one else can be, that only I can be. Yeah, because there's only one Jen. There's no one else on the planet like me, and what I can bring is unique to me, and it's the same for all of us. We all have something that makes us amazingly unique, and is our gift to the world. And whether you realize that or not, I encourage you to find out what that is, because when you find out what that is, you start to live with purpose. And even in those desert seasons of your life, you can still drag yourself out of bed, because you know that you've got something of value and worth to add to the world. And my business, when I was planning my business, or actually planning the name of my business, I took it really seriously, because I was like, what is my passion for people? What do I want people who come on a journey with me to achieve? Do I want them to be fit and healthy? Well, yeah, that goes without saying. But what do I want? I actually brought it back to me. What do you want, Jen? What do you want? You're in this place. You're in a hot desert. It's rough. It's rugged. But what do you want? What do you want your life to look like? Where do you want to be at in 6 months' time? And the word was, I just want to thrive. I just want to thrive. I want to live fulfilled. I want to wake up happy, and I want to live every day out of a passion and a mindset and a heart intent that goes after what I was put here for. and the reason why those things brewed in me from the age dot of, of a little kid, a little girl. And that's how my name came about, ThriveFit. And for me, it has so much power and significance to me personally, but it also has a lot of significance to what I do and my heart for people's lives, because it goes beyond just health and fitness for me. I can come and train someone, I can come and help them nutrition-wise, I can help them get their results, no problems, but it's more for me. It's deeper than that. And so the other thing that's interesting about my logo is that it's green. Green happens to be my favorite color. And so obviously there was a green and black logo. And that's how the business name came about. And I built my business in the hardest season of my life, and somehow I thrived in the midst of it. And sometimes that's hard to get your head around, but it happens. And I got through that phase, and going to work was my release, was my ability to just switch off a little bit from the processing and the heart journey that I had to go on and the emotion and everything, to just find me again. And that's really what it was. Yeah, sure, the marriage broke down, but I'd lost who I was for many, many, many years. And I'd lived in denial of it, thinking that one day everything will be okay. So I just keep on doing what I'm doing, not fix any root causes, but it'll just be okay. And it's a really bad place to live, guys. And I encourage you that if you're just doing life, or there's something not right in any area of your life, then you need to address it, and you need to take a really good hard look at it. Because if you don't now, a wave's going to hit at some point, and it's going to blow up, and you're going to be forced to deal with it, and it's going to be a lot harder then. But I hope that resonates with some people, because it sure as heck resonates with me. But in that time, I guess I put a little picture up there. You'll see the lion. I started to grow into what I call a lioness because I can't explain how out of that desert season I started to not only thrive, but I really started to feel like I was a very powerful person, and not in the sense of physically powerful, but my mindset started to become a very powerful weapon for me. And the choices I made were my choices, and I was now in control of my life again, not life happening and me just living in denial, thinking that everything's okay. So along that journey, I found myself again, and I started to become happy. I found Herbalife. And I found Herbalife one day when this was a bit more than 12 months ago. It was about January last year, when my body was ruined from the journey that I'd gone on. And I was actually at a point where I couldn't function and do my day job. Even though I was passionate about it and I'd get out of bed for it, I was battling to teach my classes. And just to put it in a realm of perspective for you, I was teaching anywhere between 10 to 15 classes a week, physically teaching, not just freestyle classes, but Les Mills, body pump, RPM, grit cardio, grit strength, and they were the main ones that I was teaching. So my body was under immense physical pressure every day to perform, and then I was ruined. My guts were a mess. I had food intolerances. I just couldn't cope. My body was breaking down essentially, and that was just a result of the stress and everything that had happened in life, plus the stress of building a business, plus coming to terms with the fact that, you know what, I have to build my business because I've got 2 little bambinos now, and this is more important than ever. So I found Herbalife through a girl that I used to work with back in regional New South Wales. She took over my role there when I left, and she banged on about it for a little bit. I'd seen it on Facebook, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, you know what? I just got to do something. I have to do something. I'm a kid who's grown up on Chinese herbs. My parents have always been, about eating well and putting tablets in your body and stuff like that. So I was accustomed to that. It wasn't weird or foreign for me. But I guess I'd used so much in that time of just general herbs and things. And I was like, nothing's working. Nothing's working. This is horrendous. Like, why is nothing working? So I called her on the phone and I said, look, I kind of inadvertently actually called on behalf of a couple of clients, because I was like, they needed, I was interested to see what we could do for them. I'd been training them for a while. We had their nutrition on point, but we just weren't getting results. And they were also having energy level issues. And then I was at a major point of adrenal fatigue. And I thought, all right, let's make a call and see. As a result of that call, had some calls with Cooter and Craig, and I thought, all right, I've got nothing to lose. I jumped on, took 2 of my clients along with me, and they got results, boom, straight away. They were losing weight like you wouldn't believe. Their energy levels were just going through the roof. I was like, this is great, this is good. And I was like, yeah, I'm feeling good, but I'm not feeling like that. But, I'm going to keep going with it. And I persisted with it. And look, the only reason why I didn't get those results was because my starting point was far worse adrenally than what theirs was. So it took a lot longer for my body to respond and find that point of balance, just because of how disheveled it was. So I really started to notice results about 3 months in. And I decided pretty much after 1 month, I was like, that's it. This is a no-brainer. I need a nutrition solution for my business. Let's go. Sign up. Boom. Let's move. So I jumped off a cliff. After I jumped off a cliff and started my own business, jumped off another one. I thought, oh, well, I didn't drown, so this is good. Let's just keep going and see what happens. So introduced that, and you know what? It's made such a difference to my life and to my clients' life. And again, another watershed moment where I'm like, I am so glad I jumped off that cliff again. And I started to learn that, you know what? It's not actually about jumping off a cliff, because every time you go and put yourself out there and you jump off a cliff, the real thing that you're facing and the real thing you're confronting isn't the cliff, it's just fear. So if you're prepared and you want to overcome fear, you got to jump off a cliff, because 1 or 2 things will happen. You're never going to drown. You know the old saying, oh, sink or swim? You never drown. You either swim or you fly. But what you learn along the journey equips you for the next cliff and the next cliff and the next cliff. So, I learned along that journey a lot, and to this day I'm obviously still 100% on Herbalife. I think I'll be on them for the rest of my life. But that's how Herbalife came into my world. I think since then, obviously then, my next hurdle was, the reality of, living by myself with 2 kids and all that. And, I'm very lucky in the sense that my ex is, we're commutable people. There's no ill towards us. I don't have, I'm blessed to be in a situation where it's not a case of someone, was, there's any physical abuse or anything like that. It was just a case of we'd gone so far apart that it was not able to come back. And after a lot of, time working through that and getting help through that, there was nothing. And that happens sometimes. And people struggle to get that unless you've lived it. Because I think I was like, no, that's stupid. That's not possible. But, things happen, and that's where life landed. But you know what? I look back now and I go, that journey brought me to where I am now. And where I am now, I would never be the person I am now. I would never have found myself and reconnected with my passion and my purpose if I hadn't have walked that and if those things hadn't happened. So, the saying that everything in life, everything you journey through, the tears, the hardship, whether it be financially, whether it be in relationships, whether it be in businesses, all of those things that you journey through set you up for your next best season. And that is when you start to thrive. It's just getting you through that hardship. But you know what? I am very strong mentally. And I've become even stronger mentally. And I think the ramifications of that have now played out in the physical realm after I got my body right in my training zone. I'm doing things that I was like, what? 150 kilos? Don't be stupid. You can't push a sled at 150 kilos. That's stupid, Jen. And I'm like, hang on a minute. Bring that shit on. Let's give it a go. Who says I can't? I don't know. Let's try. And I've created a state of mind for myself and for my clients and the people I work with that says, we read it, we hear it, but to live it, nothing is impossible. And the only realm of restriction that we put on ourselves is governed by fear And that's what holds you back from possible. So if you're prepared to, I guess, it's not that, fear is always going to be there, but you can make a choice to overcome that as well. And you can make a choice to go, you know what, sure, I'm scared, I'm worried. Should I do that? Shouldn't I do it? Can I push that? Can I not push that? Oh, I can't. But the second you go into a negative state of mind and go, no, I can't, the game's over. You've lost. So being on the front foot mentally is one of the most powerful things that you can live out to, drastically change the course of your life and your destination and what you want to do. You can go to the next slide. So that's a bit about how I ended up with my business. Obviously, I took those things and decided that, you know what, we live once. It's time to it's time to do some stuff. It's time to start living some bucket lists and do the things that you didn't do because you thought you couldn't, you shouldn't, or there isn't enough time, or whatever excuse I wanted to put out there. And I started to do things, but I didn't do it myself. I started to take people on the journey with me, and I started to show other people that, you know what, we can actually overcome things, and we're stronger together than what we are separately. So I started putting teams in things like events like Grit, Tough Mudder. These guys went on and are doing Spartan, but I pulled out a Spartan just because I'm 4 weeks out from a comp and I'm a little bit protective of my body, not wanting to injure it or do any damage at a crucial point. So, I ended up with quite a large following of people when we go out and we do stuff, and it's so much fun because when you do it together, you are able to pull the best out in people, and you're able to take people. And I'll never forget, there was a couple of people on those different times that went in there and I knew their headspace was, I can't do it. Oh, I'm not going to be able to do it. But they ran off my belief. They ran off my belief, not their own, my belief that said, I believe you can do this. So if you can't believe it for yourself, just take my belief and just run with me. Just have enough trust to know that I will get you through. I will get you to the finish line. I will not leave you behind. You will make it. And it was my personal, vendetta. I'm going to make this work. You guys are going to get there. And, everything that we did out of Grit and Tough Mudder, I made sure we did it as a team. No one gets left behind in my team. I don't believe in it. We do it as a team. We ride it together. We push together. We go through the pain together. We pull each other through. And that's the power of a team. All those guys got through. There were people in there that thought they never would. A few injuries on the way, but you know what? We pull each other through. And there's actually a YouTube video of us from our Tough Mudder one. If anyone ever wants to see it, you can just jump on. A guy by the name of Brendan put it up. But it's phenomenal, and I still watch that and I get really excited because there's so many good memories and so many things that were achieved for a lot of people, both physically and psychologically in those moments. So don't ever underestimate the power of something as simple as putting a team together in a group and what that does and how that impacts someone's life to achieve greater. Couple of little logos here that I put up there that sum me up and my business as well. Your smile is your logo. And I can honestly say that I smile more than I have for many years because I've just found me again and I've reconnected with what I was meant to be doing my whole life. Your personality is your business card. How you leave others feeling. The most important bit, how you leave others feeling after an experience with you, that's your trademark. That's your legacy. That's what you leave behind in people's lives. You can give people information, you can have a conversation, but what they feel when they walk away from an interaction with you is there for life. They will never forget that. They will always remember that. And they'll always have an emotional attachment to that. They'll forget what you say, but they'll always remember how you left them feeling. And that's the essence of everything that I do with the people I work with. The little other one there is something that really got me through in my hard times, which is the struggle ends when gratitude begins. And I've known this in my head, but then living that consciously was a real game changer in shifting the heaviness in the struggle for me. And I did something, I think it was halfway through last year, that I thought, bugger this, I'm going to go and do a 30-day challenge online and do 30 days of gratitude. And every day I'm going to post something that I'm grateful for. And I tried to connect as many people in it as well. So we started to create an atmosphere, a culture that shifted something in the natural realm that started to change people's focuses on everyday life. I've come from being a very negative person, stuck in a rut, to now being, nah, you know what, anything's possible. Okay, I got stuck on a train today. The whole city circle shut down. I missed 2 classes that I was meant to teach at. It's all good, because guess what? I'm really grateful. Now I can train even harder at my personal training session this afternoon. And it was a good session. But there's always a positive, right? And it's finding those moments in the midst of the things that go wrong and being grateful for something. And I'm telling you now, when you exercise that alone, everything changes. I would have a bad day and it would start bad and I'd be like, oh, here we go, this, that, blah, 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 blah. The whole day would just spiral to nothing. Now I can get stuck on a train, miss my classes, and I'm like, oh, well, it's out of my control. It's what happened. Nothing I can do. Obviously, communicate it to relevant people and they've sorted it out for me. But it's all about how you look at the situation and how you choose what you choose to do in that moment. And that's the stuff that we have control over. That's the stuff that we can actually gain a perspective on that's different from everyone else. And I'll tell you this, gratitude has done something in my workplace that still flips me out a little bit. I'm the group fitness manager. I recently got promoted and asked to take on the group fitness manager as well at the gym that I work at in a part-time capacity. So I now get to sit upstairs with a whole lot of people, some interesting people, and I love working with them. But I walk in every day and happy and bubbly and just positive about whatever I'm going to do today and whatever I'm going to achieve. And this way that I'm living, I guess, that for me is normal and real, is starting to change atmosphere around me. And I don't know if you've ever walked into a really negative and heavy environment, which isn't where I'm at, but I have been in those before in other workplaces, and they're draining big time. They pull you down big time, and it's almost like you just want to get out. But I want to put a challenge out and say you can actually change that environment. You can change that atmosphere by who you are and how you live and your mindsets and how you actually, live out your core values. One of my core values is gratitude. I found a hat. You've probably seen it in my picture. I was super excited. It has gratitude on it. It was like a moment that I just stopped. The lady at Lorna Jane was like, are you okay? Are you feeling faint? I was like, no, just tell me, does that hat say gratitude? And she's like, yeah, of course. As if, what's your problem? And I was like, put that in my bag. I need it now. And it was just little defining things, And when you walk around with a grateful heart, you can't help but, have the tenfold, outward ramifications of what that brings to you. Gratitude is a major, major foundation. And when you live in that or choose to live in that place, because everything is a choice, guys. We think that life is just dealt to us and we've got to suck it up. No, we don't. We have choices. We have choices as to how we want our lives to go, as to what careers we want, as to how we want our relationships to be, as to how we want to be as parents. We have choices that we can make, around who we want to be and how we want to live. And gratitude is definitely up there on my list and has been a big game changer in my perspective, my just everything, the weight just lifts when you're grateful and you exercise that daily. So I start my day, I get out of bed and I go, right, here we go. Oh, I'm a little scared about what's going to happen today because I live in an uncomfortable zone in the sense of everything that's happening with Herbalife and what I'm pursuing, which I'll tell you about next. But you know what, that's okay because every day I'm getting better at it. But I'm going to be really grateful that, whatever's going to hit me today, I have enough to endure for. I've got everything I need. I'm fully equipped for whatever's going to hit me today. I have everything that I need within my capacity to exercise to make today awesome no matter what hits me. So even if everything turns to poo at work and I've got, a massive, excuse the French, but SHIT fight to deal with, it's okay because guess what? There's someone else out there lying on a bed fighting cancer and I'm talking about this. It's okay, And when you put perspective around things, suddenly something that is big is actually really, really small. And that's how I've chosen to look at things in my life and really draw attention to that because things pop up and things hit the fan every day, but we can always bring that back into a place of, you know, who we are and how we want to deal with that, and remembering that there's always someone else out there who's got it worse than us. So the next slide that Andrew's put up are just some of my favorites, and I really like the one that I found that says, be the girl who believes anything is possible, because I've believed for a long time in my life that I can't do it. But guess what? I can, and so can you guys. Anything is possible. There are no limitations. There is no excuse that can hold you back, and if there are excuses, they're just based and founded on fear. That's it. Over to the left, excellence is not being the best, but it's actually just doing your best. And that's something that I really promote to, you know, not only to myself, but to my clients. You know, we're not perfect human beings, and in whatever we're doing, whether it's training, whether it's business, whether it's home life, whatever it might be, just be the best version of you, you know, do your best, and your best is enough. People go, oh, that's not enough. No, you know what? It actually is enough, because for that day, that time, that place, that's enough. And that was, you gave everything you could in that moment, and that's what matters. That's excellence. The last one, it will hurt. It will take time. It will require dedication and willpower, and you'll need to make healthy decisions. And that's just not in body, that's in mind. Yeah, we've got to make healthy decisions in the mind as well. And it requires sacrifice. Mate, I sacrifice a lot, and I know everyone on this call knows to some extent what it's like to sacrifice something. We've all done it, we all live it, and we all have done it even today. We've had to sacrifice something today. Maybe it's just giving up time to be on this call. You'll need to push your body to the max. Yes. There will be temptation. Yes. But I promise you, when you reach your goal, it's worth it. And this really, for me, sums up my journey immediately in my personal goal that I'm pushing towards, and also in the goal that I'm pushing towards with business and Herbalife. So if you could go to the next slide, Andrew. So where I'm at now, guys, is basically just some pictures of me at work training. As far as Herbalife goes, I had a very strong vision and passion to really want to do something in my community. I work like 30 minutes away from where I live, which is great, but I want to get out of the four walls and the environment of a PT gym environment, and I want to pull in community, because my passion is people, and it's not just fitness, it's not just nutrition, but I want to see people thrive. And I know that I have a purpose in helping individuals find those points and in their life that really start to turn their journey of life around, whether it be financially, whether it be business related, whether it be health and nutrition related, whether it be on personal levels. I just know that I've got value to add, and I know, and we all have value to add to the people's lives that we touch and change. But for me, the one thing that is my deep seated passion is that I want to find the gold in people. Because you know what? We always go, oh, that person's nasty. And I'm sure there's people out there who are pieces of work. But they're only pieces of work because no one stopped to find the gold in them, to mentor them, to draw it out, and to help them change their life so that they can be the person that they were always meant to be. That, for me, sums up everything that I do. And fitness and health is a major part of it. But, you know what, the journey is about pulling people and showing people what's possible. You know, showing people what's possible. We've all done it. I've lived it. Everyone else on the call, you know, is seeing what's possible. And if all I can do in my time here, and I hope I live to 100, because that's my plan, right? I'm 34, so I've got a few years ahead of me. But if I can live that and help people achieve that, can you imagine what that would do in a community? Can you actually picture just how the dynamics, the atmosphere, the family, communities, the houses, the businesses would change as a result of people living the life that they were always destined to live and finding the gold that's inside of them, finding those capacities. It's essentially coaching, right? Mentoring, coaching them, life coaching, whatever you want to call it. But if we had people living at that level 10 factor, could you imagine, like I don't know if you ever stop and picture stuff, but I'm a visual person. And I just picture a community of super, super happy, super friendly, super supportive, and encouraging people, because they're all on the same journey and they're all there for each other to see each other grow and prosper and flourish. Like, that's massive. And that's my passion with Shack 24. And, you know, we're just replicating what every other active club is. We're not, you know, changing anything along the scope of that. For me, it's just a very, very firm passion. And my goal, you know, I want to impact, I want our team and the coaches that come in from the Shire to impact 500 people's lives. But I was challenged with a number of 5,000. So when you see hashtag 5,000, that's the big overarching one. Yeah, and I love it when someone challenges me, if you haven't already noticed, on any level of life, because I go, right, okay, it causes me to expand my thoughts and stretch that bubble a little more and go, hang on a minute, this person's right. 500, why not 5,000? Who says we can't? Could you imagine 5,000 people healthy and happy, living how they're meant to live? That's epic. It's massive. And if everyone did that in their communities, in their areas, in their countries, in their states, holy moly, I reckon we could destroy, you know, some issues that we have with lack of peace in different worlds and things like that. I don't know, maybe not. Who knows? But it's powerful, you know, and people need to live their level 10. People need to come alive and find themselves. People need to be connected to communities where we pull each other through. You know, I didn't have anyone to pull me through my hard times, and part of that was my fault. But I want to be for people what I wish someone was for me in those times. And that was my fault because I did withdraw. So, you know, I've kind of take responsibility for that a little bit. And I've learned from that a lot as well. But, you know, don't ever put your hand up and be afraid to ask for help. And I think the reason why I love Herbalife is we're a community and we're all here for the same vision, the same mission, the same purpose. And literally we have just hearts on fire. And that is living your level 10. That is living what you were put on the earth and the planet for. And whether that's in a completely different business, in a corporate world, it doesn't matter what the scope or the makeup of that looks like. It's about what you're living out of and how you're thriving and prospering through that and what you're doing to take other people with you. You know, you're not here for just you. You're here for other people. And people need us. People need the products, yes, but they need people like us who care, who give a shit, who actually genuinely care about them, who look at them in the eye when they're spoken to and give them 100% attention and focus on what they're saying, who are prepared to ask questions to find out below those onion peel layers what's actually at the bottom of their heart. What are their dreams? What are their passions? Where do they want to go? What do they want to do? And what's my role in that? What's your role in that? What can you do to help people take them on that journey that's going to change their life? And they're going to look back one day and go, that person, you know what? It was so strange what happened, but look where I am now. Someone that believes in them, yeah? And we live in a society where people just don't believe in themselves. They do not believe that they can achieve, do, be, see any of it. But we can. And so if we've got that, we've got to teach people how to live off that belief. And if that means they have to live off our beliefs, then so be it. Because there'll come a point where they start to believe it for themselves and they'll live it. There we go. Enough said. I've got to stop talking. The other thing, just on a personal note, so my personal journey is obviously that this year, was actually last year, I decided I wanted to go and do figure comps. There was a bit of debate around what categories, and the bodybuilding world's, you know, an interesting world. It's a confusing world because there's so many different divisions and categories, and made it confusing. But I knew that that was something I wanted to do, something on my bucket list. And more importantly, my body and my mind was actually finally at a point come June last year where I was like, right, if I do this, I do it. What I commit to, I do. And I give 150 in everything that I do, whether it's training a client, whether it's teaching a class, whether it's doing the business of Herbalife, or whether it's training in my own sessions. I give 150 because I have to walk away knowing that my excellence is doing my best. And that's exactly, you know, how I live. So I'm doing a figure comp. I am 4 weeks out. That's the latest picture of me. that, yeah, you know, I couldn't have achieved the results that I have achieved thus far without the products, for sure. I mean, some people outside of Herbalife, you know, in the PT industry will be a little bit skeptical of that. But I know that if I hadn't have gotten my body from the inside out back on track over that 13, 14 months ago, there's no way I could perform at the level that I'm performing now and actually exerting and doing what I'm doing. There's no way whatsoever. My body would have definitely broken down by now completely. I would have been injured and I would have been completely burnt out and out of the industry without a shadow of a doubt. But these products have really enabled my body to do what I need it to do, to be able to take it to those levels, to perform at the levels I need it to. And, you know, I go hard. I'm not I'm kind of an all or nothing girl. If I do it with whatever capacity I have within me. Otherwise, just don't do it. I don't have that gray area. It's 100% or forget about it. Don't even invest your time in it. And I'm like that across the board, which is a bit scary. But that's where I'm at. My first comp is unfortunately on the Saturday of the Success Summit. But I'll be in Darling Harbour on that day, and that is my competing date. And then I've got another one up the coast about 2 or 3 weeks later. And then we're just going to see how I go in those. If I can get a pro card, then I'll be able to go to the internationals on the Gold Coast in June, and that'll be season A complete. So that's my personal goal. That's what I'm working towards. I am completely out of my league doing this stuff. Not the training and nutrition bit, but, you know, getting up on stage and putting super, super high stilettos on and trying to walk and pose. That's completely out of my league. But you know what? It's been an awesome journey. I knew that I couldn't do it alone. So I recruited a couple of coaches. One of them is a personal trainer that I work with who I respect very highly, and he's ex-bodybuilder. He knows what he's doing. So I recruited him for my fitness side of things, and just I don't have a capacity to sit down and write my programs. I'm too busy. So I just needed to load that to someone else, and he's taking care of all that. My job is just to give 150% and train hard. And then I also recruited another girl. When I say recruited, I mean I went and found them. Who helps me with all of the posing and pretty much all the other components outside of coming and training and eating right and things like that. So I've been very lucky with these guys. Yeah, they're really admirable people. I have a lot of respect for them. And they've got me just as far as, you know, what I have. It's not just the products. You've got to be prepared to reach out and ask for help sometimes. Trainers who train trainers, people laugh at that. And I'm like, why? We all need to be pushed, and we all know that we all have a breaking point. And I know for me that this guy has been able to push me past my breaking point, which is pretty hard to do, but he's definitely got me there. And if I can cry in a personal training session, then you know I'm pushed to more than max capacity, which is pretty cool. But that's how you get wicked results. You know, you've got to be prepared to mentally go there. And the last thing I'll say is, you know, we talk about mindset, and in the context of personal training or just physically training yourself, your own body, I learned a really valuable lesson early on. I was doing a shoulder press. This is going to sound really weird to people who maybe don't know a huge amount about exercise and things like that, but I was doing a seated shoulder press, and I was given, it was either 16 or 18 kilo dumbbells, and it was my final week on a 6-week program. And I was like, oh, man. And I pulled him off the floor. I shoved him on. My trainer was behind me. He's like, come on, Jen, you got this. And I'm like, okay. And I picked him up, and I got to the start of my rep, and this thought went through my head, and this thought broke me. You know what it was? Shit, I can't do this. Oh, my God, I can't lift this. I can't lift this. It was just like it just went through my mind like a flash of light. You know what happened? I got to the top of my rep. I dropped my dumbbell, cracked in my head, saved it just at the end. Was so embarrassed that the whole gym was packed and watching me. I got really shitty, and I was like, right. I put my dumbbells down. I stood up. I shook my arms off. I said, just give me a minute, Scott. I came back. I picked them up, and I was like, right, I own you. You will not beat me. You will never beat me. I own these dumbbells. And I just punched out my reps. and I just knew in that moment, as I reflected on it, I was like, that's a life lesson. As soon as that thought goes through your head that you can't, it's done. It's done. You literally will not be able to do it, because that first thought dictates what you physically do in the natural realm. And as soon as I thought that, boom, it was all over. So from that day forward, no matter what crazy weights I get put in front of, or, you know, whatever the challenge is, I know that my first thought has to always be, own it, do it, you've got this. Something along those lines. I'm the crazy woman in the gym that walks around, and I'm always self-talking, because I know that for me, that's what I need to do to get me through. So that's a little valuable lesson that I learned. You know, that first thought, you got to guard your thoughts, you got to guard your thoughts, you got to guard your thoughts in everything, because that first thought will dictate what happens in the natural. So that's pretty much me, guys. I could say heaps, but I think that is plenty. A couple more little ones here, and I want to leave you guys with these slides. If you can't fly, then run. Yeah, we all start at different points, and whatever you're wanting to achieve, whether it is, you know, getting a level 10 result, or maybe some of you guys want to pursue something in fitness or business, whatever it is, yeah. If you can't fly, that's okay. Just start by running. And if you can't run, that's cool. Just start by walking. And if you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you just have to keep moving. You have to keep going forward. You cannot stop. Why? Because many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they just packed it in, when they just gave up, when it's all too hard. You can't live in that place. And if you want to, you know, you can do that, but you need to be aware of the consequences of that, because you won't achieve. You won't change the world. You won't become the millionaire. You won't, you know, have that house that you want, because you cut yourself short of what was possible. So wherever you start in your journey, pick it, start from that point, but make sure you're always moving forward, always achieving, always pushing on to your goals. Sound good? That's it. I'm done. Over and out.
Boom, boom. Blimey, I don't know where to start with what to say in regards to that. That was just mind-blowing. That was absolutely inspirational. Resilience, yeah, mindset plus. Thanks so much, Jen. That was great.
No
I think
worries.
I can say on behalf of all of us that, wow, you smashed that session. Wow. What what I'll do what I'll do, folks, I'm just going to put everyone on the screen. Why is it not working? Don't want to see my ugly mug by itself. Really, no, don't want to.
Oh my God, I did all that without a drink.
Oh no, you did well. You did well. Oh, look, folks, I can't get the full screen on, but yeah, look, Jen, just want to thank you. I am going to, however, unmute everybody. If you give me a moment.
Can I say one more thing really quickly?
Go for it.
We need to raise each other up.
Boom.
We need to learn to come alongside people, whether it doesn't matter who they are in Herbalife, inside Herbalife, outside of Herbalife. There's one more thing that's been really heavy on my heart this week, and that's, you know, we get challenged with things, but we're all part of a same team. And there are people in our sphere of influence, or not in our sphere of influence, that need someone to come alongside them for whatever reason that is. And I encourage you to just remember, don't get caught up in your own world, because it's so easy when you're massively busy. But there are people out there who right now are going through things in their life that need someone who's prepared to reach out, come alongside them and lift them up and journey with them. And I encourage you, go and find people like that and be something to them that no one else is prepared to be, and help them. Yeah, because they need someone to be there for them. And just think about that this week. Who can you go and come alongside? Who can you lift up a little? Who can you take under your wing maybe, and help them on the journey of where they're at? Because you know what? We've all got stuff. We all have things going on in our life right now as we speak, yeah? There are things happening. Yeah, we're not all on cloud nine. The reality is there's people out there who are going through hard times, whether we know them or not, whether they're in Herbalife or not in Herbalife. But make sure you don't get caught up in your own worlds, and go and find those people and be something to them that they need right now, because that's going to change their life. Done.
Gold. All right, folks. So what I'll do is I'm just going to unmute everybody, and yeah, just say what you like. Give your thanks, and then we'll end it there. So thanks heaps, Jen, and we are unmuted.
Unbelievable.
Awesome work, Jen.
Unbelievable.
Thank you very much, Jen.
On you, Jen.
Awesome.
Well done. Smashed it.
Well
Awesome.
done.
Yeah.
You're amazing.
Good job, girl.
Those are awesome.
Well done.
So proud of you.
Great work.
Love you, mate.
Love you, babe. Thanks, guys.
All right, folks. So wanted to thank you for jumping on tonight. We've got someone else you'll be quite excited to hear from next week. So thanks for tuning in. Have a fantastic remainder of the week, and we shall see you next week. See you, folks.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Andrew.
Pleasure. See ya.
Cheers, Andrew.
See you, folks.